Gifty Andopia has been speaking to Dr. John Gachi. He is a chartered economist and also a senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast Business School. And we're looking at the subject of Ghana's option for an IMF bailout. And this, according to reports, was taken as far back as February 2014. And he noted this time the two parties will discuss proposal put forward by Ghana. And unlike in the 1980s and early 1990s, when the IMF imposed conditionalities on Ghana, this likely was not going to be the same. Again, the discussion with Dr. John Gachi, and we have those questions being posed by Gifty Andopia.
More often than not, the government or people in authority have continually said that we are not in an economic crisis, and they've hammered it so well. Is such a move to go to the IMF necessary now, because the situation really is getting out of hand?
Well, I think it is necessary even earlier before this time. Okay. Some of us called as early as February that was the right time to go in for the IMF bailout, because the challenge facing us is largely to do with liquidity. Liquidity in terms of foreign exchange inflow. There is shortfall of supply as against demand. So you need to look at a sure point of source of actually getting that inflow of forex in order to shore up the supply base to stabilize your currency. And that is the challenge. So for me, it is the right time to go as early as February, but we delay, and now we have decided to go. So for me, we need it.
Now, people have asked, what are the things that scares a lot of people when they talk about an IMF bailout? There's a kind of conditionalities that are attached to this. Would you say the current economic situation in the country, and with calls for indigenous support and things like that, that the country is really ready for these kind of conditions that we should be expecting?
Well, I think we need to assess ourselves, how far we have improved ourselves. If you look at the 80s and the early 90s that we were on the IMF programs, we have not developed so far as we have gone now. We have a lot of human capital in the country. We have a very good outlook for the medium term and long term for the country. Revenue generation, diversification of the economy is very bright in the medium to long term. So it is not the same Ghana that went to IMF conditionalities in the 80s and 90s that we have today. We are lucky today. The managers of the economy are telling us that they have what they call the homegrown policy, which means that they have a program that they will send to the IMF to discuss. Unlike in the former days where you go to IMF empty-handed, you don't even know what to do.
So
with
now
the
they give you the terms.
Exactly. So now we have a very clear document. We have a roadmap as to what we want to do to transform the economy. So the discussion will be based on that. Of course, if the IMF thinks that there are other things to be added or subtracted, that will go through a negotiation or discussion process, because the IMF itself has transformed over time because of some of the blame that they have received over the years. For that matter, their outlook is that of partnership rather than imposition of their the economic policies.
What do you say to the people who say that this is really on paper but not in reality? Because what you're saying that it's more of a partnership, but is it really what happens?
Yeah, that is if we look at the people that will be sending for the technical discussion. If they have this concept that I am talking about, then there is nothing to fear about the IMF package. Because bear in mind, in the recent economic history of Brazil, who is giving some facility to Ghana today, they have gone to the IMF bailout. After 4 years, they went again. But Brazil is now providing support to us. So it means that if we go to this bailout and learn our lesson and try to ensure that the homegrown policy and program projects that we have, we are able to use the IMF bailout to focus on that, commit ourselves and achieve the benefit therein, then we should not be in the situation where we are today.
But so what should the people who are going, what should they do? For instance, assuming that they've met with the IMF, the board of the IMF, what should they do? What should they do? Because we know What if the IMF says, okay, this is what we have for you? It's a take or leave situation.
We are no more in that era where IMF will say, this is what we have for you.
What if that happens?
That will not happen this time. I do not think so. I think we need to look at the reformation that IMF itself has gone through, and that what we have achieved as a country. In 2000, the situation was such a terrible situation, such that the IMF imposed a policy on us. They brought the HIPIC initiative.
We couldn't have done anything about it.
We couldn't have done anything. We accepted. But at this point in time, we have prepared a program. So they will listen to us, discuss the program with us. Of course, it does not mean that they are going to just take all the program that we have. They will go through. It could be that they are going to select some of the programs. It could be that they will add some of them, and the discussion will continue.
But in the long term, you believe that an IMF assistance is something that will be beneficial to a country as Ghana?
Yes, I think so. Because if the liquidity position improves, we stabilize our economy. More predictability of our economic activity is on course, and other programs that the country is engaged in to deepen the energy sector also come on stream. Then we have a better economy to manage for all of us. But we need to remind ourselves that we keep on going back to the IMF because we are not being able to focus on the things that we ought to do to move the economy forward. So we should tell ourselves that it is because we are going to IMF because we believe that will bring greater discipline in economic management. So we should learn from that greater discipline that the IMF is going to impose on us. I think for me, that is the greatest condition that the IMF is going to impose
the bit that the country will be compelled to ensure discipline, fiscal discipline.
Exactly so. And if we learn from that, because if we go to IMF, these are the things that they impose on us.
So why can't we do it without necessarily waiting for that cane from the IMF?
That's the point I'm making. That's a lesson we should be learning rather than thinking about the IMF of 1980s.
What are some of the conditions that we should be expecting? I do know that there's, at a point in our history as Ghanaians, there was a time where they made us cut off subsidies to agricultural workers, or let's say to farmers. In these times, and as you're saying, the IMF has gone through a lot of transformations. But what are we to expect, I mean, in terms of conditions to be attached to this kind of assistance?
I think that is very difficult now until the negotiations start and the papers are coming out before we'll be able to do that. If not so, we will just be repeating the old conditions that they put on. And meanwhile, I keep on saying that the nature of Ghanaian economy and the posture of Ghanaian people as to how the economy to be run is different from the olden days that the IMF could just speak and then everybody had to bow. So let us wait for the documents to start rolling out, then we will see the nitty-gritty in whatever we should be discussing. However, I think the greatest condition will be discipline. That will be the greatest condition.
Discipline what? Discipline how? Discipline where?
Discipline in terms of how you should focus on deepening your revenue mobilization. When I talk about revenue mobilization, I'm talking about revenue mobilization from taxation. How we are going to...
The government says it's doing that already.
But we need to see more. We have been talking about how they should roll out electronic platform automation across board to deepen revenue mobilization, make it more convenient and easier, bring more into the kitty. That has not been seen clearly. So definitely...
But that, of course, doesn't include taxation, let's say more taxes, imposing more taxes.
Not at all. That's why I didn't talk about tax. I talk about bringing on board electronic platform, etc., to integrate the formal sector with the so-called informal sector to bring more people on board. That is part of widening the tax net. It's not necessarily about increase. If you look at government is structured in such a way that they have created SOEs, the state-owned enterprises, to be the income or profit-making outlet of government. But you will realize that there are many SOEs which are not actually paying dividend to government. Some of them are even supported by government. And that definitely will come on board.
And actually that is one area that the government has sought to let these SOEs wean themselves off government. But I don't know how easy that will be. And
that is why I'm saying that it's going to be a discussion. So the government will bring on board what it has done about that situation, as opposed to what IMF will be thinking, and that will be a collaborated effort in that direction. So I'm not looking at revenue mobilization only in terms of taxation, but in terms of what the SOEs are bringing on board, and then in terms we also get revenue from exports. So in terms of how we have planned to diversify our exports significantly in the medium to long term, I think those are the areas I think IMF will be seeing. I also think they will look at issues of subsidy. But before IMF start talking about subsidy, my position about subsidy is that subsidy is an integral part of the economic structure of this country. Therefore, the appropriate means might be put in place before we remove subsidy upfront. Because if we do that, that can also create problem for the economy. So these are the things. But as I keep on saying, the overall benefit and condition that we seek to get from the IMF will be
fiscal discipline. Would you say that this economic adjustment, if you like, will have any political implications?
Well, it depends on how other political players understand it. And I doubt if that will be, in the sense that in 2000-2001, it was IMF who brought in the HIPIC initiative. In fact, if you read our current budget, some of the inflows of the HIPIC fund are still trickling in the current budget. So we can see the huge work that IMF has done in support of this economy, especially when the other party was in power. So I doubt if they will come and demonize the IMF.
Well, I think we'll leave it there. But is the IMF itself in a position to help at all with the global economic crunch, would you say?
IMF is in position. In fact, I remember when we were discussing the Century discourse, I have the opportunity of even telling the IMF that we know that they have been supporting our economy. But the way they are talking about the economy is as if they are forcing us to rush and come to them quickly. They should wait. When we are ready, we will come.
So it was actually an option on the table at the time?
Yes. So I'm looking at the whole of this IMF as an option, not as if it's a suicidal mission that the economy is taking. It's an option. Of course, this option is not mutually exclusive. You have opportunity to also access other funding to support other projects in the country. So it's not as if when you go to IMF, the doors of financial inflow into the country is closed.